And on that note, welcome to a special bonus episode of Bitches Love Sports. I am your host, Jazz Monet. Thank you for everyone who's already showed up in the chat, everyone who's already watching on YouTube and on Twitter. Like I always say, I'm doing this by myself. So those of you watching on YouTube, let me know if you can hear me. Let me know if you can see me. I'm connected to the good Wi-Fi today, so we should be good. And if you are on Twitter and you want to be involved in this conversation, you'll see me responding to people who are in the chat throughout this show. And for whatever reason, I just don't be seeing the comments from Twitter. So I haven't figured that out yet. But if you want to join in, just go ahead and find us over on YouTube. Just go to YouTube, search Bitches Love Sports, or you can go to bitcheslovesports.com and find the link to our YouTube and find me there. So, what you just saw was a monologue from years and years ago. If you couldn't tell by the references to things like Dr. Quinn, Medicine Woman, and Bon Jovi, that was years and years and years ago when DeionSanders was on Saturday Night Live. I really like finding these old clips of Coach Prime because sometimes the way people talk about the Colorado Buffaloes and the way that they're going about things, it's almost like they feel like Coach Prime is just kind of he's just like coming up with this stuff out of nowhere to just try to make it seem like the team is bigger than what it is, like. And I'm like, no, this is who he's been for a really long time. Actually, this is who he is. This is who he is, and now he's just taking who he is and what he knows and his experience as an athlete, as a celebrity, and using it to make a difference in the lives of these young men. So there are a lot of gems out there that I've been sharing. One of them I actually did share on Twitter/X yesterday. Um, and I don't really understand the algorithm because it seems like a lot of my followers didn't even get to see it. And I feel like they missed out. So I'm going to have to repost that at some point whenever it gets better traffic because that clip was gold. It was absolute gold. Um, and just, I don't know, the X algorithm is weird because like that video I thought was amazing. And I'm not going to tell you what it is because like I said, I might take it down and repost it. But like if you want to just go scroll through my feed, you might find it and it's amazing. But then stuff like the post where I where I was like hashtag ProudDakLover, that shit gets like 6,000 views. It's so weird. And it's funny because I could tell from some of the responses, and even some of the like private responses, that people didn't understand where that hashtag came from. So basically, a few days ago, I think it was, I posted something about Dak. Who knows what it was? It feels like I post something about Dak a few times a week, whatever. But somebody came to the replies and they had a rebuttal for that statement, but it was like some kind of nonsense argument, and they ended it with Dak lover, and they said it like it was some sort of slur. Like this was just the biggest insult to call me a Dak lover, and I could not stop laughing. And what made this whole situation even funnier was that I went into my DMs. I hit up my friend Martin Talk Cowboys using the chat. What up, Martin? Good morning. And I was like, yo, this dude called me a Dak lover, and I can't stop laughing. And just from me saying that, he knew who it was. So this dude like literally has a reputation for going to like different fans of the Cowboys and different fans of Dak Prescott and calling them a Dak lover like they just fucked up in life by being a fan of Dak Prescott. And then what was even funnier was not only Martin, but somebody else then went in the replies and was like, "Get out of here, Georgie Porgy." And even though I can't see what any of these people look like, I don't know what Martin looks like. I don't know what this particular commenter looks like. But in my mind, I'm just imagining these all being grown men. I'm pretty sure Martin is a grown man at least. I don't know who Georgie Porgy is, but just the imagery of a grown man telling another grown man, "Get out of here, Georgie Porgy," because Georgie Porgy called me and others a Dak lover is insanity to me. And I have been laughing ever since. That night, I probably laughed and giggled for like 30 minutes straight. Like I was going about household chores and I just could not stop laughing. But definitely since then, like every time I think about it, I'm just like, Georgie Porgy called me a Dak lover. And that just encapsulates my Twitter experience as a content creator. And as my following is growing, I'm still laughing. So in the comments I was like, yeah, I need to get this on a shirt. So like when y'all see me with a shirt or a beanie on that says Dak lover, just know that's where it came from. Like it's 100% a joke. And a hilarious one at that. So on that note, thanks for all the comments. Thanks for the love, you guys. What we're gonna do is like we do every Sunday morning. We're gonna go through the post game sound from the Colorado game. And that also includes the post-game sound from the USC game. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about the Cowboys, and then we'll get up out of here because football is already happening. I'm sure people want to get food. I know I want to get food. I haven't really eaten a full meal yet today. But I did sleep. I did sleep this time. I got sleep on the Saturday night. Yeah, me. All right, so this Colorado game, this Colorado versus USC game, it was circled on a lot of people's calendars, even when Colorado was still undefeated. Everybody was wondering how this game was going to look. Earlier in the season, both Caleb Williams and Shedeur Sanders were Heisman favorites. That situation has changed a little bit for Shedeur, as most people know who have been keeping up with the Buffs. And I don't necessarily disagree with that. But I do think that there are a lot of people, especially people who make decisions about who should be Heisman favorites, who have not yet seen Shedeur at his best. Football is a team sport, and offensive linemen matter. Like, if y'all watch Dak Prescott's press conferences, he wears the hat that says linemen lead the way, and it is absolutely accurate. And we'll listen to some of Shedeur's sound, and we'll hear him talk about some of the growth that he himself has to do as a quarterback. But I do think that some of the growth that he has to do is also related to the fact that he has not been dealing with a very good offensive line. I do think that makes a difference not only in performance, but also in development, because development comes from repeated execution. And there are certain things that you cannot execute if your offensive line is not protecting you. That's just a fact. So as they continue their recruitment efforts, I 100% expect Colorado to get a better offensive line in front of Shedeur. This week on Undisputed, Coach Prime actually made a point to say, hey, we're going to do a better job of protecting two. We're going to do a better job of protecting Shedeur. And I must say, even though that game did not go perfectly, they did do a better job of protecting him. So when he takes that a step further and says, hey, we're trying to recruit 8 more dogs to this team, I believe him on that note as well. And so I do think that's a big part of the reason that Shedeur is not going to the league at the end of the season. And I do think that's a big part of the reason why he himself has realized the necessity for more growth as a quarterback. So there was that component of it. We got to see a side of Shedeur Sanders that, quite frankly, fans of Colorado needed to see. After the last game against Oregon and the way they went out, there were a lot of people who wanted to see him use his feet more, not only because he's good at it, but also because of the way this team is currently constructed against opponents like Oregon, like USC. It's 100% necessary for him to just take it upon himself to get the job done. Now, against Oregon, there were times that he tried. Like I mentioned, they had 2 spies on him for several parts of that game. He also tried the quick game against Oregon, and it didn't go very well, right? But from watching the way that he attempted to execute those things, I think when it happened against Oregon, it was like a move of desperation. It was like, okay, nothing else is working. I'm going to try this. This week, it looked like he actually put in some effort to prepare himself mentally and physically to say, okay, I know I'm going to have to pick up the ball and run. I know I'm going to have to do some escaping. I know I'm going to have to do some scrambling. I know I'm going to have to look for some receivers on some unorthodox, maybe even made up routes. And he just looked more prepared to take the game into his hands and get that done. And I think that's why we saw the development from pretty much after halftime. And then we got to see this breakout performance from Omarion. I forget his last name, and I feel so bad for forgetting his last name. And I don't have notes in case you can't tell. Usually I start off the show and I tell y'all if I have show notes. I do not. So I'm going all off memory. So if I forget somebody's name, please do not take it personally. But yeah, Omarion, y'all know who I'm talking about. The freshman who broke a record for most yards in a game by a freshman for the University of Colorado in Boulder. That kid literally came out of nowhere. Miller, thank you, Way of Life. Miller. I was thinking something. I was like, is it Miller? Is it Williams? Johnson? What is it? Thank you. So Omarion Miller killed it. And this is literally what happened. So, like I said earlier, I got sleep last night. I don't always get enough sleep. So yesterday I was watching the game. I was eating brunch while I was watching the game, and I ended up falling asleep during halftime. I moved from the kitchen to my bedroom, and while I was waiting for the game to come back on, I fell asleep. And I woke back up and I kept hearing the name Omarion Miller. And I was just like, wait, because I've looked through the roster. So I've read each name once. And I was just like, Omarion Miller, wait, who? And I look up and I look at the box score to kind of catch up with what's been going on. And I see this kid has been killing it. And I'm literally like, where did this kid come from? Where was he in the first half? Where was he last week? They're going to touch on that in the post game sound as well. But just the way that he stepped up was phenomenal. And the way that he stepped up, and the way that Shedeur stepped up, and the things that we saw from the Colorado Buffaloes this week confirmed one of the things that I've been thinking about this team for a while, which is that what we're dealing with is a young team that's inexperienced in the sense that when it comes to the Pac 12, and here's something I almost tweeted, and the reason why I didn't is because people have a lot of thoughts about defenses of Pac 12 teams. But what I wanted to say was you can tell that Shedeur is still adjusting to some of the things that he's dealing with from these Pac 12 defenses. Reason why I didn't tweet it was because I didn't want to deal with a bunch of backlash of people being like, well, Pac 12 defenses aren't that good. Because for 2 weeks in a row, despite these teams being ranked among the top teams in the nation, I've had people, when I'm previewing these games, be like, well, their defense is yada yada yada. They said it about Oregon, they said it about USC, just basically suggesting that defenses of both those teams would like fall off the map, or just not get the job done in ways that would keep Colorado in the game. So I have a good idea of how people feel about Pac 12 defenses. So I just didn't want to have that conversation. The conversation that I was trying to have was that regardless of how you feel about these defenses, regardless of how you feel about these teams, Shedeur is dealing with something that he hasn't dealt with before. And you can tell that he's having to do some growth in that situation. And I like what I'm seeing in terms of that growth. But you can tell that he is growing, the team is relatively inexperienced. Not only are they not really used to each other, but they're not used to what they're dealing with from these other teams in terms of what they're putting on the field and in terms of sheer strength and size. Like if you look at the players on Colorado and you look at the players that they're dealing with from the better teams that they face, they are literally smaller, you know? So there's just a lot going on in terms of things that these players are having to get used to. And to say that they're doing it on the fly, to say that they're doing it in the spotlight, I actually like what I'm seeing. I think it says a lot about the potential future of this team and where they can go. And I want to look at a couple of these comments. JVB boy, what's up? Thank you for listening, even though you're driving. Be safe. So Carlton Miller says, go with your first instinct. Two is not adjusting to Pac-12 defense. He's holding the ball too long, and unfortunately does not have the great O-line. Doesn't have the greatest O-line right now. 100%. He does not have the greatest O-line, and I think him holding the ball a long time is just due to him not being able to find a target. Honestly, he actually talks about that in his post-game sound too. But that's why, like, somebody commented on one of my posts yesterday, and they were like, yeah, both Caleb and Shedeur are both NFL ready. And I wanted to be like, not so fast. But once again, I only post things when I'm ready to have that conversation. I did not want a statement about Shedeur not being ready for the NFL to turn into an argument about whether or not he's good. Because I think he's very good, but I don't think he's NFL ready. And once we listen to this sound, I think y'all will see that he doesn't really think he's NFL ready yet either. Now, Caleb, on the other hand, I said after last season that Caleb wasn't NFL ready because he seemed like a one-read quarterback who would do his one read, and if it wasn't there, he'd pick up the ball and scramble and do something that was usually amazing, but not necessarily something NFL coaches and coordinators would appreciate, right? This year, it does look like Caleb has done some development in terms of being able to read defenses, in terms of going through his progressions, in terms of doing his checkdowns, and not being so quick to scramble and take matters into his own hands. And he does look like a whole new, even better quarterback. So I'm excited to see what the rest of the season holds for Caleb. I would not be surprised if he gets that second Heisman. I would not be surprised if he gets drafted very high. Martin says, you tweet that, LMAO, you're getting SEC and Big Ten fans with their fist balled up. 100%. You know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm talking about. And that's why I was like, nah. Okay, whoever tunes in live to hear what I have to say about the Shedeur Sanders, they'll hear it. Whoever doesn't, they just miss out. It's whatever. So yeah, and Carlton, the one aspect of your statement, Carlton, that I disagree with is I do think Shedeur is adjusting. I think it's going to take him some time to like truly evolve into something where people can see clearly that he's adjusting. But just listening to the feedback that he has for himself and seeing in this game against USC the way that he didn't hold the ball nearly as long as he held it against Oregon, even though he was dealing with some of the same situations in the sense that sometimes he looked up and there was nobody that was an obvious target to get the ball to. And he did have to quickly make that decision. Okay, like, do I need to scramble or do I need to keep looking? Do I need to throw the ball away? Right? It looks like those decisions he's making a little bit quicker, but he did talk about a couple of times where he was moving a little bit slow. Um, so let's go ahead and get into that sound because, like I said, I don't want to keep y'all forever today. But we're going to get into that sound. And nope, I don't want to share my screen. I'm actually going to try sharing a file today. Sometimes the screen sharing thing gets messed up because of Wi-Fi issues. So we're going to see what happens when I share a video directly from my computer. Fingers crossed, y'all. Hopefully this goes well. Plus, I kind of edited the video to where, like, at least for one section of it, there's the play over what they're saying. I want to do that more, but I be having to work. So what you get is what I'm able to do in the few hours I have available. So thanks for tuning in. Thanks for watching. Hope y'all appreciate this regardless. All right, let's take a look at this.
We've got the first question. Can I ask both Shedeur and Omarion to please...
Omarion.
Omarion, sorry.
Real quick, I'm going to pause it right there because this moment where he had to correct them on his name seemed to be like an analogy to me for what Colorado is dealing with as a team in terms of trying to explain their culture to the rest of the Pac-12. Because it's like, for example, people in my circle, people who I run with, if y'all get what I'm saying, will look at the name Omarion and they would know that says Omarion. And I feel like for somebody to look at that and be like, Omarion, like it's just like how do you even get that? But it's a cultural thing. And then he like corrects them and the dude still doesn't say Omarion, he's like Omarion. And so like the pronunciation is just off. And to me that just felt like such an analogy for how like Colorado presents themselves, especially early in the season, just wearing their jewelry, got their swag going, like fraternizing with celebrities, social media, whatever. And people are like, that is arrogance. And they're like, no, we're just enjoying ourselves. We are proud of ourselves. We're proud of how far we've come, despite not having won a championship. Like this is who we are. It's just our culture. And people are like, no, it's arrogance because we said it's arrogance. So like that was just like such a huge analogy to me. Sorry, I be thinking too deep about stuff, but let's keep going.
Can I ask you both to describe the 4th and 5 touchdown pass? And Shedeur, first with you, what did you see? Because every replay I saw, there wasn't any opening there, and you found one. Can you sort of describe what you saw, and then maybe go from there?
Really just trusting the play call. OC coach, he made the call. We just got to execute it. That's it. Starting off, we executed plays early and often. We was here and there, and then we had a couple penalties. So we can't afford to keep doing that when we playing these better teams. And yes, I'm proud of him for being able to step up and knowing it's that moment, his time was coming, and he put it on display for y'all.
What did you see on that play?
Pretty much the same thing Shedeur said, just trusting in the play, we go over those plays every day, just building confidence with each other and, just believe I can make that play. So, it's all about trusting your teammates.
Were you screened on that play?
So the response to that question was interesting. I don't know how well y'all can hear the reporters, but the reporter basically said, hey, that touchdown that happened on the 4th and 5, which Colorado is surprisingly good at 4th down conversions, by the way. But he's like, hey, that touchdown, what were y'all thinking? What did y'all see? And they're both like, oh, well, we trusted the play call. And I'm like, I don't know about that because as I'm watching that, I'm like, that definitely looks like a broken play to me. You say that y'all practice these plays all the time, and I'm like, okay, so you practice plays where the O line completely disintegrates, and Shedeur has to scramble to his right and find you running away from a defender in the back of the end zone. Like, y'all practice that? So I'm just like, if the play call was like, okay, start off here and then just make sure you get the ball to Omarion, sure, trust the play call, it works. But I'm just like, that did not look like any drawn up play. That looked like you two connected and just figured out how to get it done. Y'all just decided like we are not about to end this drive empty-handed because that was like what an 11-play drive, I think is what that was. I don't remember how many minutes, but it was 11 plays. That was the 11th play of the drive. So I'm glad that they respect their coach enough to give him credit, or their coordinator enough to give him credit. Um, but yeah,
Defensive back.
Not really. He kind of just stepped in front of me. You know, I took it backside and I just went and tacked the ball.
So then, Ryan, Jake?
Omarion, what was it like to just have the game you had today?
Oh man, it was crazy. You know, honestly, last night I dreamed about playing like this. You know, I just dreamed I'd come out here and destroy, and I did it. So you know, all praise to God.
Matt, go ahead.
Shedeur, Matt Smith, 104.3 The Fan. You want to just take us through the last 6 minutes? You guys got the ball back, I think, like 5:58 with one timeout left. Felt like maybe there were some communication issues, or maybe just took a long time to get things in. What was going on?
so this is where Shedeur is about to take credit for, or not take credit, but like claim accountability for some of the growth that he needs to do as a quarterback.
There?
Really, we just all 11 players on the field wasn't going to execute that exact play call. So my thing is, I'd rather take our time, rather than have a negative play and stuff like that. So that goes on me for not controlling the offense and not controlling everybody knowing what to do in that specific play. But that's why it took. And you know, sometimes I checked runs on some plays because it wasn't the great look that we needed. Regardless of anything, we just want to play a real clean game, and it's things we could always go back and do better. Y'all on the outside, y'all, everybody has opinions of what we could do, but y'all not in the moment. Y'all not seeing what we seeing. Y'all don't know that wasn't gonna work for that. So what's our change up? We gotta do something else to keep it going, keep us in tempo, and have another positive play. So that's why we was really going slower, and I put a lot of that on me. You know, Coach, he's really a fast tempo guy, but I slowed it down, and that's just on me. I gotta grow from.
You just
So he literally said at the end, he started to trail off, but he said, yeah, that's on me. That's something I got to grow from. So it's like that slowness, that hesitation to get the ball out sometimes, or hesitation to get things going with the offense that Carlton talked about. It's there, it's real. But I think if you draw the conclusion that Shedeur is not adjusting to these defenses, you're kind of doing him a disservice. I think he's adjusting, but we just need to give it a little bit more time. Because we got to think, sometimes you just don't know till you know. Last week, I talked about what it can be like as an athlete to adjust to a completely different level of competition in a play. And I think, you know, these past 2 weeks, Shedeur is facing the best teams that he's faced, especially this season. And so I think he's learning each week. And going forward, you know, I think they've got a few unranked teams coming up until their bye week. So it'll be interesting to see how this team, and especially Shedeur, responds to teams that after this performance, they're going to be expected to beat. I'm going to get to your comment in a second, Carlton. I'm going to go through this.
in that vein, real quick, you talked about you ran the ball, you checked into some runs. You guys ran the football on the whole much better today. What did you see out of the running game, and do you think there's some stuff to take forward?
It wasn't even what I seen. It was basically just follow the keys, understand what calls called, and all of us having a understanding of what the play call is and execute it. These are the same plays we've been running forever. Like, everybody runs power, everybody runs zone. Like, that's what it is. It's about just the players executing it. So I feel like today we had a better mindset and understand, okay, we got to execute these plays for them to be able to work, and that's what we did. We just got to do it quicker.
Tyler, go ahead.
Shedeur, Tyler King with the Denver Gazette. What have you seen from Omarion in practice that has led to the confidence that you had in him today? Because there was, I think, the one play in the fourth quarter, you just threw it and he wasn't looking, and he turned around and it kind of popped right in his chest. What has led to the confidence in him in practice?
That's an anticipation throw. That was where I know where he's going to be, and I trust he's going to do that. And all it is I've been telling him, I said, bro, I need you to step up even from day one, whenever he was just out in summer workouts and stuff. And I told him, I said, bro, you could be a big part of the offense, or you could just have a freshman year and just wait. You know what I'm saying? So it's up to you, and I'm glad he finally came and understand who he is as a player and understand, like, you know, the level. Everybody's human. Everybody can be beat, and he has what it takes to be able to go out there and dominate. So I'm happy he was able, in one of the biggest games of the season, able to go out there and do that.
So that's one of those comments that to me really emphasizes the fact that they are, at least on some level, aware that they're all still adjusting to each other. Because it's like there are a couple of ways that you can approach getting a job done as a team. And it seems like Colorado is still in a phase where a lot of their performance relies on emotion. on how they feel. If they feel excited, if they feel aggressive, if they feel ready. So, when they start talking about like, oh, anticipation throws, I trusted him to be there. I've been telling him since camp that he needs to step up, yada, yada, yada. Those are phrases that we hear a lot, but I'm talking about the frequency with which we hear them from Colorado. Just a lot of the stuff that we hear from the players and from the coaches suggests that what they definitely are teaching the players. They definitely are developing the team. But as far as getting them ready to go, and the fact that you hear from other professionals in the business that, like, yo, to say they haven't been together as a team that long in the grand scheme of things, they're doing really well, and people being surprised about their success. I think a lot of their ability to perform on that level does come from just the emotions that are generated and the excitement that exists among them. And just whenever they're able to channel that in the right way, they're able to actually pull out some of the skills that they have and make use of the skills and talents that are already there. Um, I'm gonna go ahead and look at a couple of comments. Carlton said both QBs are NFL ready. Most rookies and second year players still work through reading progressions. Okay, I'll give you that. I'll give you that. I can't really argue with that, and we see that a lot, and I've actually talked about that. I guess I think about that development having just taking place in a different way on the NFL level than it does on the college level. Because I feel like we've seen some college quarterbacks who look like they've gotten good at it, and then they get to the NFL, and it's almost like they have to start over again. It's almost like if here's your level of reading progressions, it's like doing it in the NFL is over here. So it's like you can be good at it, but you're good at it in a different context. And so you kind of have to like go back and figure out how to do it on an NFL level. So I feel like if on the college level you're here and not here, then it'll make it harder for you to get here on the NFL level. So I'd rather see Shedeur go from here to here and then over here than for him to just try to go from here to over here, if that makes sense. Maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. Martin says Shedeur is where Caleb was at last year. And on that, I 100% agree. Their style is different, but in terms of their comfort level with going through their progressions, reading defenses, making decisions, stuff like that, I 100% agree. Um, Carlton said, you have to appreciate Two's honesty and ownership. I really, really do. He doesn't deflect or blame others. Two and Mr. Miller definitely ad lib on that touchdown. Yes, he showed that a few other players throughout the afternoon. Yes, they do, and they get that right a lot of times. Not 100% of the time, but even the amount of times with which they get it right, that's not something every quarterback can do, and the two of them are really, really good at it. Lastly, my second time watching you. Thank you for your analysis. Keep going. Oh, please get rest so you can watch the entire game. I am working on that. Thank you for the compliment, Carlton. I appreciate it, and I promise I am working on getting some rest on Friday nights and on Saturday nights and every night. But on that note, let's keep going.
Rodrick, Adam Worcester Tiger, 24/7 Sports. When did you find out you were going to get the start, and what was it like getting out there against a quarterback like Caleb Williams?
I found out earlier this week. It wasn't a shocker to me because being a grad transfer, I got experience, so I was ready for the moment. I can tell you this whole week I probably wasn't able to sleep a lot. I would wake up in the middle of the night thinking about it, and just playing against a quarterback like Caleb Williams, man, that's a dream. It's a dream, man. Playing against the Heisman quarterback from last year, it's a dream. I wouldn't want to be nowhere else than what I was today. I feel like I gave everything I had. There's still some stuff we got to correct as a defense, but overall, man, it was a dream come true, man.
Go ahead, Mark.
Mark Kisla, Denver Post, for Shedeur. Your attitude and the team's attitude, it's 34-7 with just a minute left in the first half. And second, you played against the best quarterback, college quarterback in the country. How do you think you fared?
Wait, say that one more time?
How do you personally?
No, I was saying the first part.
You're down 34-7
Yeah.
with a minute left in the first half. What's your attitude at that point and the team's attitude?
Plays play for what it is. Understand they just executed plays. That's why they was up. We didn't execute our plays, and that's why we weren't. It goes again like in practice. Like, you just can't get bored with the easy things. We just had to lock in and understand, look, this is not going to be a recap of what happened last week, and we're just not going out like that. So we got to, whatever it takes. And that was the whole motto this week, and that's how I prepare mentally. Like, whatever it takes, we'll do it and just put everything on the line. So really just getting in that zone and having everybody get in that zone off rip and off the beginning, then that's what will help us, have not getting those great deficits, especially when you're playing a good offense and a great quarterback.
So what he said about getting in his zone from the beginning is another sign that a lot of their performance is based on emotion. Because when teams are new and when people on the team are young and inexperienced, a lot of times they kind of have to get a feel for the game before they get going. They need something to kind of like drive them to hit that next gear in performance. So it's like slow starts and things like that. That's something that you will see a lot of times with inexperienced teams. Now, the great thing about Colorado is that once they get going, they're able to get going on a level to where a lot of times, even if they do end up in a deficit, they're able to take the game back. And that's the impressive part. We saw that against Nebraska. We saw that against Colorado State. Even against TCU, depending on how you feel about the back and forth, you could even say that it happened there. And later in Coach Prime's sound, somebody even pointed out the fact that that was something that happened at Jackson State. But I think all of that is a sign that they are, in a lot of ways, operating off of emotion and how they feel. And they haven't quite gotten to the point yet where things are like clockwork and they come on the field and they're just ready.
Relish being on the same stage as Caleb? Did you enjoy being on the same stage as Caleb?
I mean, I feel like my stage is my stage. I don't think he's a great player, but it's not
Just such a Sanders
I'm on his
fan
stage and
answer.
anything like that. Like, we got the attention, we got everything we need. I'm comfortable. I'm good on, how everything I'm doing. So it's not really a stage, it's just a big game. That's it. I feel like every game it was millions of viewers and everything. So the stage is for y'all to set and stuff like that. Ours is just to go out there and play against human beings.
For Rodrick, Jack Harlow, Buffalo's Wire. Just what changed for you guys defensively? I think you allowed about half as many yards USC in the second half. Just what changed for you guys?
I just felt like we was able to play together. I felt like the first half where everybody was rah-rah and the energy was high. And once we finally came together in the second half and everybody calmed down and focused on their keys and had their eyes in the right place, there wasn't no stopping us, man. We were able to steamroll and get that.
So there he's like literally making reference to the emotions of the team impacting their performance.
Get that train rolling and get the ball back in his hands. That's all we was trying to do, man.
Ariel, go ahead.
Ariel Arsudo, 9 News for Shedeur. Very simply first, do you believe in moral victories?
Say it again?
Do you believe in moral victories? Do you think this was a moral victory?
I don't know what that means.
Okay.
So as soon as she asked that question, I am kind of surprised he didn't know what that was. But at the same time, I'm not. Because when it comes to the Sanders family, Shedeur, Shiloh, DeionSanders Jr., Deion Sanders, what we see from them, it definitely reminds me of a lot of the people I know who consider themselves to be high performers, whether it's high performing entrepreneurs or high performing athletes. They kind of have this way of looking at the world where it's like, and Micah Parsons actually said it in a recent interview where he was like, if you do lose, you better learn something or something to that effect. And so it's like there are wins and then there are losses and then there are lessons that you can learn from each. But it's like this whole idea of like, let me take a loss and trick myself into believing it was a victory. Like there are a lot of high performers who have this type of mindset where they simply don't believe in that. My mindset coach, who is also a former NFL player, he has this quote, and he's going to kill me for not remembering who it's from, but he would always say, it's important to stay connected to reality. No, it's important to stay grounded in reality like a spider connected to its web. And so just being acquainted with the reality of a situation and accepting it and deciding what you're going to do from there is a really big deal for high performers. And you can see it as a common thread among Deion Sanders and his sons, that they all seem to kind of think that way. So as soon as she said moral victories, I'm like, you're either this is either a trap question or you just don't pay attention to who Shedeur Sanders is. Because without asking that question, I could have told you, no, they don't believe in moral victories. And Deion Sanders gets asked the same question, and his answer is interesting. Carlton said, I believe he knew what it meant, but that was his way of responding. You know what? You're not wrong. You're not wrong. That could legitimately be his way of being like, I know you didn't just ask me that. Really? You want to talk to me, Shedeur Sanders, about moral victories? Okay. And then Martin said, I respect it. I do too, 100%. I love people who think this way. I really do.
Then let's move on from there. What came together for you guys in the second half, and like, why do you believe that this second half of the game is who this team really is?
I mean, it's gonna get boring of what I'm saying because it's the same thing. Like to football, all it's about is executing, getting into that zone, getting into that mind frame off the beginning. So it's really those who don't understand, you won't know. Those who play sports will understand. Like getting into that, you can't hear nobody, but just focus on your job and assignment and trust the guy next to you. I trust in my O-line. I trust in all the receivers and stuff. There's things they're good at, things they're bad at, but play to everybody's strengths and really just get back with Coach Lou, and just talk about what we like, what we don't like, what we're getting great looks out of, and he called a great game.
For a while for Shedeur and Rodrick, this game was looking a lot like last week's game, and then you guys turned it around in the second half. What does this valiant comeback mean moving forward? What does winning the second half against USC mean moving forward for you guys as you progress in your season?
Nothing. We just lost. It don't just because it's a big team, that don't mean we tip our cap and be like, okay, at least we get blown out now.
It was interesting. They're trying so hard to get a certain type of response from Shedeur, and Shedeur is just like, that's not my mindset. That's not how I think.
Like, nah, a loss is a loss. We all humans. We all put our pants on the same way. So it's just understanding this is the problem, and we got to get to a solution and find a way to get to a solution, start out fast and get in that zone.
Yeah, and I'll piggyback off of what he said. Hey, it's a loss. A loss is a loss. After you lose like that, you go to the playbook, get your eyes right, get the stuff right in the film room, and come back next week. That's all you can do. Come back next week and go harder next week.
What he just said is something that I used to tell my teammates all the time. It's another aspect of like that high performer mindset, but it's like sometimes we get upset like if they didn't make the roster after a tryout or if we lost a game. And I would just kind of be like, hey, was your end goal to make this particular roster? Was your end goal to hit this game? Or was your end goal to ultimately make the roster and win a championship with this team? Because if that's your end goal, then at the end of the day, your next move is the same. At the end of the day, you need to go back, look at film, and figure out ways you can improve. Because so in roller derby, it's like teams like Rose City and Gotham. So be like, unless you feel like you're ready to go take on the Rose Cities and Gothams of the world and defeat Scald Eagle and defeat Bonnie Thunders, and you don't have a problem doing it, you still have work to do either way. Whether you won or lost this game, or whether you made this roster or you didn't, the next mission is the same. So I just really like that he said that.
Nikki Edwards, U Sports Report for Omarion. Michael Irvin came.
Omarion.
Sorry.
This my man Omarion. He went for a lot of yards today. Here freshman, you ain't seen him much, but
Michael Irvin came up to you after the game and shared a message with you and said you ran an NFL out route and then some. What did that message mean to you, and what's your response to that?
It meant a lot, coming from Michael Irvin, that kind of pumped me up a little bit, that message just telling me, just keep working, I got so much to prove, this just one game, y'all ain't seen none yet, really, so just telling me keep working and just doing what I do best.
Brian Howell from the Boulder Daily Camera. Even though it is a loss, can you take momentum from the way you guys finished this game offensively after, obviously, Oregon didn't go well offensively in the first part of this game? Can you take something from the way you guys got things going?
Yeah, just continue to just go off the message that Coach keeps telling us week and weeks. We got to do the simple things right, and before we're able to do a lot of exotic things. So that's really just going into it, understand like the small plays, like the read keys I didn't read the right way and pulled it. Like certain things like that we just can't afford to do, and that's going to get us behind in the game. So that's really it.
Shedeur, David Ubben with The Athletic. How would you describe the mindset of this team after the last 2 weeks? And also, what are some of the things that you feel like people don't understand about this offense or this team? When you mentioned that?
Oh, really? Well, today we kind of got a glimpse of who our identity is. When we play good football, we didn't really have a taste of that until since week one. So we're offensively, we know no matter what happens, we got to go out there and score every drive. So that's where I feel like we got our mindset in the second half, and we could take that from that and understand, look, we're able to get back to that point. We just got to be able to do that throughout the whole game and not just the second half.
So he said, today we got a glimpse of who our identity is. And so I feel like this is something that I don't have to explain to Colorado fans who I've seen like actually show appreciation for the team. This might be more for the people who are trying to analyze or pass judgment on or evaluate the team. But it's like they're performing the way that they're performing, and they don't even have an identity yet. because it's like, yes, they're 3-2, and I'm not saying that they should believe in moral victories, but like they scored more points against USC than any other team has so far this season. They got that close to the 8th-ranked team in the nation, missing a couple of their best guys because Shiloh and Travis Hunter were on the sideline. So just imagine what that game would have looked like had they been in the game. And so to say all that, and they haven't even been together as a roster for a whole year. A lot of these guys are relatively inexperienced compared to other people that they're going up against head to head in the Pac-12, like Omarion's a freshman. And they're doing all that and haven't even figured out, they got a glimpse of their identity today, is what Shedeur said. So I just feel like there's tremendous upside with this team, and the people who are trying to kind of like dampen the excitement are just completely missing out. I'm like, no, there is so much to be excited about with this team. There are so many reasons to follow this story. There are so many reasons to keep up with them. And I mean, like, maybe everybody doesn't nerd out on team culture like I do. I love analyzing the culture of a team. I love analyzing the mindset of the players. So every time something new is posted on Well Off Media that gives us like a glimpse behind the scenes, I I eat it up. I really, really do. And I feel like if you are speaking about this team, talking about this team, writing about this team, doing anything that involves impacting the public perception of this team and you aren't consuming that content, you're only getting half the story. But we're almost done. Let's keep going. Martin, you're silly.
I can't really say because it's universal everywhere. Everybody has problems. Everybody has new players. There's no excuses. It's not that. It's nothing y'all don't understand. Spotlight ain't too much. The media ain't too much. There's nothing that's too much. 'Cause I feel like we have a great job handling that and blocking out distractions. So it's up to us individually, and then we come collectively as a team.
Okay, two more. Go ahead, Marcus.
It's Marcus with the Athletic. Shedeur, you look to be a little bit hobbled, but then you take off for a run. Like, were you playing through something? How'd you feel physically?
Nah, for sure, my ankle hurt a little bit. I ain't gonna lie, boy. And like, ever since I was younger, like my shin be swollen. 'Cause I used to hit my shins on desks and stuff when I was in school on accident. I was clumsy. I was a clumsy kid. So I think that's a permanent thing, and it reminded me of like how it was back in the day when I was younger. So that was really it. I got twisted up one bad time. Basically, I got twisted up. You know how Xavier Weaver, every time he gets hit, like he just falls weird. That's just what happened.
Okay, last one, Meg. Go ahead.
Okay, there's one more question. And before we go into it, since we've been here for 45 minutes already, if you're in the chat, I want you to tell me if after this you want to listen to Coach Prime sound, or if you want me to just go straight into the Cowboys preview. So do you want to give me a thumbs up if you want to listen to Coach Prime, and give me like a cowboy hat. Just say Cowboys if you want me to just be like, all right, we're done talking about Colorado. Let's talk about the Cowboys.
Mick Miller, Fox 31. Shedeur, obviously the offense made a lot of strides today. I feel like the
And by the way, I cut Coach Prime's sound short, so it's like half as long as this, just FYI.
run game also made strides today. I think that started with you scrambling. Is that a conscious decision, or is that just in the moment seeing what you're able to get from the defense?
It's funny, we had this conversation the other day. Like, we don't have predetermined, I'm going to take off. Like, that's not what it is. We got to understand how they're playing us, how they're going to contain me and stuff like that, and understand, okay, basically the rush lanes. So progression, 1, 2, if we feel something there, then we're able to slide over. And one on the interception, I feel like I should just slid and gave Weave the ball. Now we made one bad things, too. Now I start scrambling, and he slipped, miscommunication, pick. So, it's things like that I can't put that on the receivers, and that's just on me, and just me just getting back to the basics and understand week after week and practice. Even when I feel pressure, I got to be able to stand in there and take it.
Okay, thanks, guys.
All right, so how do I get this off the screen? Here we go. So in that last response, we heard Shedeur once again taking accountability, and I love hearing him talk like that, because there's two things that are true about Shedeur Sanders. One, he's very self-aware, and two, he doesn't waste a lot of time when it comes to development. There are some people who, as athletes, they'll realize a weakness or a flaw, and they'll just kind of be like, well, one day I'll work on it. and you can kind of tell like, okay, like they're not, there's not a sense of urgency there. But with Shedeur, you can tell there's a sense of urgency. Like some of the things that he mentioned in that press conference today, he's going to try and look better in those areas next week, especially considering that they're going against an unranked opponent. Um, and then the question before that had to do with how they're responding to the media attention. And he just kind of said something along the lines of like, yo, the spotlight isn't too much for us. The media isn't too much for us. We're good with having to block out distractions. And regardless of what people might think, I do think that's true. Now, I do think there's a level to that that consists of unknown unknowns where they might not realize all the ways that, having the spotlight on them affects them. But I do think, at least from a conscious perspective, it's kind of like what I said a few minutes ago about, their culture and them being misunderstood as a team and the way they present themselves. I do think people assume that they're a lot more distracted and a lot more affected by it than they really are because they're so unapologetic about it. They're so bold with it that people are like, well, there's no way that they would allow their existence to offend us on purpose. They must not be aware. And it's like, no, motherfuckers, like they enjoy this. This is who they are. They aren't thinking about you. They aren't thinking about your feelings because the fact that y'all are offended by this is ridiculous in the first place. Um, and so I really look forward to the day that they can get back to a point where they're wearing the shades and the hats and the jewelry in the press conferences, and they can do that unapologetically. And yeah, I like seeing that from them. I like seeing them celebrate themselves. I like seeing them proud of what they're doing as a team. Because even in the losses, like I said, they don't have to believe in moral victories, but I will give them credit for certain things. I like the tenacity that I saw today. I like the way they came out in the second half. And I think if they can figure out how okay, and I'm back. And my laptop's being weird, so I'm having trouble reading the comments. What did Carlton say? Carlton said Cowboys. I'm going being a Steelers fan. Now I know why I couldn't totally embrace it. I like the Steelers too. I at least support Mike Tomlin. So it looks like everybody wants to hear from Coach Prime next, if anything. And so then after Coach Prime sound, Carlton, you can feel free to dip out while I talk to my friends about the Cowboys. And give me a second. Something's going on with my laptop. Don't be afraid, Carlton. We're friendly over here. We're friendly. I'm not going to try to turn you into a Cowboys fan. Not at all. But let me go ahead and pull up Coach Prime sound because a lot of what he said is connected to what Shedeur said. And there's a lot that he said that expounds upon just their youth and being impacted by emotion and what we can look forward to as they develop. And Martin, I know you said you didn't see his sound. I cut out part of it, so feel free to go back and watch the whole thing later. But it was like 20 minutes, and some of it was just, I was like, no.
Okay, yeah, no, it ain't me. I just walked in here. Y'all don't smell that? Yeah, it comes. Smells a little tart. A wonderful win. Just joking. Wonderful game. Played our hearts out. I just addressed the team and told them that I love each and every one of them, and coaches included, because they were resilient. They did not give up when they had multiple opportunities to give up. They fought to the end. We sustained injuries. Next man up came in and did their thing. Omarion played his butt off. I think he had a $196. Who else? Several guys played. Kamani came in and contributed tremendously. Did a great job going in. Still had some special teams weren't special. As normal, we got to fix this. We say this every week, but we truly got to fix this one way or another. Running game showed its face, and you see how better the offense flowed with the running game. We're still getting out to tardy starts. We got to come out ready to play it. I don't know. I got to fix that myself personally. We can't come out and make a surge, and right before halftime, then we start saying, okay, we're in the game. They played wonderfully. The quarterback was resilient. They ran the ball. They had hit us with some big play screens and some backside things. But, you know, coaches always say, we didn't do this or we didn't do that. They force you into doing certain things and they force you into making mistakes. But we got to just fix the little issues that we're having. And I don't know if that's age. I don't know if that's just new to the systems. But overall, I'm really proud of not only the young men, the coaches, the fan base, the student body, all of you. I'm truly proud of the way we represented Boulder today. I really am. Let's go.
So before we keep going, I want to rewind back to what he said about the slow starts, and he said, I got to figure out what to do about that. So, if I were him, because we've seen how the team responds to like emotional messages and things that kind of play on their feelings. That's why the message of "we coming" like was so impactful. That's why "it's personal" was so impactful, because it's something that you can connect to. And despite how you might feel about your own personal skills and abilities or your preparation to face a certain opponent, you can latch on to a message and just start to feel like, okay, I have a source for my confidence. I have a source for my aggression. I have a source for the intensity that I'm going to approach this game with. But if I were him, yes, so Coach Prime, if you're watching, if you want my input, but if I were him, what I would do is just try to find some sort of like just goal for the first series or two that they can latch on and get excited about, regardless of what happens in the game. So, for example, going back to my experience playing roller derby, in roller derby, you have the track, but on the side of the track you start on, there's a jam line and then there's a pivot line. And there's a lot of stuff that happens between those two lines, but one thing that usually happens strategically is that the jammer, their goal is to get out of the pack. Don't worry about what that means. But a lot of times it happens right after the pivot line. So when I would go on the track and my team didn't seem to like have a lot of intensity because they were unsure about who they were facing and what they would have to do, and they were just a little nervous, I would tell them something like, hey, first first 3 times we're out here, I don't want them to get past the pivot line. We are going to keep them within this 30-foot box. They do not get past the pivot line. That's what we're going to work on. Usually that can get a team going until they have like an actual goal, or one a team where the other takes a lead, and then your strategy develops from there, right? And so if I were Coach Prime, now that we've seen how well they respond to, just emotional messages, I would just give them, something like that. Whatever applies for whatever opponent they're facing, just something that they can do regardless of the time on the scoreboard, regardless of what the score is and who's in the lead or who isn't, that they can be like, look, our goal is to make sure they don't cross the 50-yard line, whatever. But a lot of times that right there is just enough to get people going to be like, oh yeah, I have a goal and I'm going to have to work really hard to make sure that that happens. But we'll keep going. Yes,
Hi,
Martin, you
Deion.
have
How
a
you
why.
doing? Good.
Exactly.
So, Deion, the throw that Shedeur made to Omarion in the end zone on 4th and 5, we just asked him about it, and it's just like another play.
Right.
Not really impressed with himself.
Right.
I want to ask you 2 things. One, when you saw that play, that's a play that is beyond an NFL play. There was no space.
Right.
He found some place to get it in. Where does that part of him come from? And do you remember any moments when you were raising him that he started to show that kind of acumen on the field?
Well, his nickname in my phone, and most of you know this follows us, is Grown. He's very mature. Grown, Grown. He's very mature for his age. He's very confident. He don't flinch. He never gets flustered. He's a most sacked quarterback in college football, and you can tell with the way he carry himself.
Facts.
He's just a kid that we all knew, and a multitude of our fans know, and some of you wonderful and brilliant writers know, that if we would have got that ball last, we were going to go down and score. We knew that. We know that. Everybody in here knows that. His teammates knew that. And that's just what he brings to the table. He's unflappable. And he's very wise and understanding on the whys and because in what he sees out there on the field. He thinks a multitude of things through, but he's a dynamic athlete and a dynamic young man. I'm proud to be his father and his coach. Yes.
Coach Brian, I heard an echo from Shedeur, accountability.
Yes.
Athlete, I understand that.
Yes.
And that is a true championship mind. And congratulations on Omarion. Performance was incredible. In the locker room, is that an echo among everyone, holding themselves accountable?
Yeah, not early on, no, not whatsoever. You got to understand that you can only hold people accountable when you're doing your job. You can't go right here and holding everybody accountable when you're not doing your job. So the more that these young men do their jobs and do it like the expectation that we have of them, then they can hold others accountable. But they're tremendous reluctant. It's only a few guys on this team that consistently, you know what you're going to get week in and week out, as well as practice. So once that continues, I didn't think we was going to get that from Omarion. I ain't seen that yet.
So I'm pausing there because he said a couple of interesting things, and I don't want to lose sight of the point. So, one, the point about accountability is yet another thing that points to this idea that the team is young and they're emotional and that they're still figuring things out. Because for the coach to be like, yeah, there's not a lot of guys in the locker room that can hold other people accountable because they're not even doing their jobs yet, is like, what does that tell you? The team is still developing. Everybody's aware that they're still developing. And it's like, I like to drive home these points because I feel like it provides context to what we're seeing on the field, which also gives us a more accurate way of predicting what we should see in the future, you know? And then when he says what he says about Omarion, and he's like, I didn't expect that from Omarion. I'm like, okay, so we just heard Shedeur say he told Omarion in training camp, hey, you know, you can either have a freshman year and just do you, or you can step up and be a big part of the offense. So for me, now what I'm wondering and what I'm going to be watching for and listening for is like, okay, what is it about Shedeur and his relationship with the team where he was able to see that in Omarion back in camp, but somehow Coach Prime doesn't see it? And I'm not saying that as a knock, but to me, it just speaks to another part of the team culture and how it's developing and what that might mean in the future as far as Shedeur's role as a quarterback and leader of this team. So that was just really interesting to me that he was like, I didn't expect that from Omarion. And Shedeur's like, I've been waiting on this from Omarion. Carlton says, we don't know, but he has to continue to coach up Kermani. Facts. He said something through the media, and I get it, but for the young man not practicing well, he played well today. And the same with Omarion. Good point. Because he did kind of make it sound like Kermani wasn't doing what he needed to do. And then I don't know if we got to that particular sentence yet, but he says Omarion hadn't been practicing well. And so I'm just like, okay, what's going on to where these kids aren't practicing well, aren't doing what they need to do, but then they show up on game day and all of a sudden they're a completely different type of player. And I do have a theory on that. And I'm trying to think of the most succinct way to explain it. And I think the best way to say it is that sometimes you have to be given permission to just like think outside the box. Like I remember when I was at Vanderbilt and there was a particular basketball player that I knew who like when he was recruited was like this top recruit and started playing and people weren't seeing from him what they expected to see from him, right? And then I was having this conversation with him, and it was a game where he like really stepped up, and I was like, "Yo, what was different?" And he was like, "Well, I had a conversation with one of my coaches, and the coach said like, yeah, we have plays, but you know, sometimes things are happening on the court that don't really account for what the play was designed for, and you just have to go off your instincts, and you just have to go." And he was like, "Oh, well, shit, that's all you had to say." And so sometimes I think players are so focused on doing what's right in the sense of like doing what they're coached to do, and it's almost like it's containing, it's restricting, that's the word. It's restricting for them to think about the right way to do things. But then whenever they get permission to just do what's best, to just do what will work, to do what will win, even if the play falls apart and you just got to find your quarterback, they're like, oh, well, shit, I can do that all day. And then all of a sudden you see them like step up and take their game to a whole nother level. And we as viewers, we don't always know what was practiced and what wasn't. You know, like with that one play that we showed earlier, I'm like, yeah, I could tell that was a broken play because who the fuck practices a play where that happens, right? But regardless of what they practiced, you could tell that there was some kind of chemistry between Shedeur and Omarion that they were able to take advantage of that led to a really, really good second half performance. Carlton followed up. coaches have to coach up talented players, not baby them, but set a tone and expectation. Some coach had to see this. Probably somebody did see it. And if you think of Shedeur as a type of leader in the locker room, it sounds like he saw it. And maybe they just need a way to communicate that amongst the rest of the coaches so that they can figure out how to get that side of the players out a lot sooner. And then Martin said Kermani wasn't doing the film work. I think coaches track film time. They do. But I think the point that Carlton are making is like, okay, he wasn't doing the film work, and supposedly he didn't practice well, yet he showed up during the game. So, like, where's that disconnect between you need to do this work in order to play, as opposed to like, hey, some of these kids are showing up despite what some of the coaches think they aren't doing. Like there needs to be a different way of evaluating who would be most effective on the field. But later in the sounds, you'll hear Coach Prime say he's not changing. So I don't know. There just might need to be some compromise between players and coaches there.
No, I mean, he hadn't practiced well. That's why he hadn't played. But he was forced into action, and he showed up and showed out, and we celebrated him after the game because of how he stepped up. And now I'm pretty certain that his confidence is going to soar through the roof. So now we could really call set plays for him and really depend on him a lot more, because when he could take the pressure off Xavier and Jimmy, that and in the running game as well, that's tremendous. But I'm proud of him. Yes, sir. Jackson State. Where we get Jackson State from and all this going on? All this going on, where we get that?
When you all flip the switch, it's almost like a completely different team.
True. True.
How do you all get that at the beginning of the games?
That's game planning, that's scripting, that's going out there understanding what's at hand, and we don't need to get warmed up to do this. We got to come out smoking and ready to go. Like when we come out the locker room, we're ready. In between the kickoff and the first series and the second series, that's when we have a little lackadaisical type of effort, but that's going to have to come from the coaching staff as well as the OCs and the DCs to make sure they put us in the right situation so that we're ready to go and understand the personnel that you have out there on the field, and making sure we could call certain things that they can fulfill, so to speak. Great question. Yes, sir.
Ariel
Yeah.
Arsuto, 9 News. Good. So you talked about how you were really proud of this resilient team. I don't know whether or not you.
I'm gonna pause this because I want to touch on what y'all are saying. So Martin said Prime will find a middle ground. Honestly, even though he won't say it, I think he won't say it in this press conference because he doesn't know what it is. But I think if he does find a middle ground, he'll say it. He'll say it. Prime is very open. Carlson says some players are just talented. Maybe he doesn't know how to properly view film. That's a good point. We don't know if they've actually taught these players how to view film. Like even me just watching film as an observer, like having access to the all 22, it's taken me a little while to like figure out, okay, what exactly am I looking at or looking for? Maybe he is an instinctive player. As he grows and matures, he will understand the importance of film. That's definitely a possibility. Kermani and Omarion are two that I'm definitely going to be like watching to see how they develop, both as athletes and as teammates.
You believe in moral victories. Your son says
I don't.
Your son doesn't
I
either.
don't. No,
yeah,
I don't.
He said he doesn't either.
No.
But is this?
So I don't know if it'll let me go back a second. I want y'all to hear that question.
Call certain things that they can fulfill, so to speak. Great question. Yes, sir.
Ariel
Yes.
Arsuto, 9 News. Good. So you talked about how you were really proud of this resilient team. I don't know whether or not you believe in moral victories. Your son says
I don't.
Your son doesn't
I
either.
don't. No,
yeah,
I don't.
He said he doesn't.
So he says he doesn't. And that, to me, is all you need to know about why Shedeur doesn't know what they are. Carlton might be right. Maybe he does know what they are, but that was his polite way of answering the question. But either way, I can almost promise you that moral victories are not a topic that is discussed in this Sanders household.
Neither.
No.
But is this, at least the second half team, is that the team that you imagined you would have when you stepped foot on this field?
No. The team I imagine would play 4 solid quarters and be really physical and really tough and definitive and just make our mark and leave an impression on not only the opposing team, but the coaching staff as well as our fan base. That's what we want to do. We're yet to have an identity. I challenged them all week on what's our identity. I don't know who we are. From week to week, I don't know what we're gonna do. You know, from practice to practice, I do, but we got to translate that into the games. So we're still searching for our true identity.
Was that close to an identity?
Is that?
Was that second half performance, was that close to an identity?
We gave up points. We're still giving up points. We got to stop giving up those type of points and spotting teams. You know,
But yeah, there's confirmation from Coach Prime himself. Like they still haven't found their identity.
you don't want to do that. We're too vulnerable. But in saying that is no excuses whatsoever. But three starters short in the secondary with tremendous. Our backup right tackle came and did a phenomenal job as well. When Savion went out, and we were praying for the big fella because he was in tears and he wanted to fight and keep it going. But I'm like, hey man, we need you for the long haul, and we're praying for Savion as well.
Coach, you talked about how everyone believed that if Shedeur got the ball there late
Yes.
and the offense got the ball late, you guys were going to go down and score. I don't know if everyone would have believed that would have been the case in the second quarter. So what does a finish like you guys had do for this team's belief moving forward?
It's tremendous belief-wise, but we got to believe no matter what. You know, it can't be just because it's a quarter or the second half. We do believe in two. Like, we do. I don't give a darn what down it is or what quarter it is or what time of day it is. We do truly believe in what he's capable of doing with this offense. We just got to make sure we keep him in the right situations and protect him. Because, shoot, he's a baller. He's a now player. He's a today player that young men want to play with. Receivers are calling from all around the country, want to play with him as well. So, you know, they're encouraging him not to look down the street too far, like we all are encouraging him because we understand what's coming. If you can't see what's coming with CU football, you've lost your mind. You just a flat-out hater if you can't see what's going on and what's going to transpire over
Don't
the
be
next
a hater,
several
y'all.
months. Something's wrong with you. Yes, sir.
Could have been so easy for this team to feel sorry for themselves.
Yes, sir.
Feel folded, down 34-7, especially after what happened last week. What do you take away in terms of that light bulb moment that went off for them? And
Well, we challenged them tremendously at halftime to, you know, everybody say they want the light until they get in the light. Now, when you get in the light, the thing about the light, it echoes your blemishes. So we challenged them to come out here and like, I ain't got time to be trying to fire you up and give you the most dynamic speech that I could craft, you know, intellectually.
So I like the analogy that he used about the light. And it's another one of those things that I hope he like talks to his team about a little bit more because it's, you know, we all talk about that part that like, you know, a lot of people want to be in the spotlight until they realize it reveals your blemishes, you know, like he just said. But there's a couple of other components about being in the spotlight that I think are really good analogies. One, you can't be in the spotlight without ending up on somebody's radar, you know, and that part I think the team has been handling well. And I don't think I'm going to go over USC sound today. I might do that in a separate video that I just post just for fun. But one thing that was interesting to me about what Coach Riley and Caleb had to say is they took zero issue whatsoever with all the celebrities and all the fanfare that was surrounding Colorado. They actually were very chill about it. And when they were asked about it, they were just like, oh, yeah, it was cool. It was a good atmosphere. But you know why? Because USC has that shit too. So it wasn't like this thing of like, "Ugh, I can't believe they have all these celebrities here," because like they do it too. So they know what it is. And I feel like whenever you are secure in who you are as an athlete, as a coach, when you're secure in your identity as a team, you don't have to attack a team like Colorado for doing what they do. You don't have to address the fact that like, oh, I can't believe they had Lil Wayne and the baby and Michael Irvin. Because you're like, okay, we do it too. We know what this is. This is familiar. We don't have to read too much into it. We don't have to use it as a point to fire up our team because we're on the same page here. We feel like this is great for college football. It's great for recruitment. It makes for a good atmosphere. Like, what exactly is the issue, you know? And so I just thought the way they handled, Coach Riley and Caleb, the way they handled the question about the atmosphere at Colorado was a perfect example of how secure people address what Colorado is doing in terms of their brand deals, their endorsements, and their relationships with celebrities, you know. But then something else about being in the spotlight is like, and here's something that I like to remind people of. A lot of people think that if you're in the spotlight, you're gonna shine. But the truth is, the spotlight doesn't make you shine. You have to be shiny in order to shine. So whether or not you're shiny happens whether or not the spotlight is on you. It's not up to the spotlight. You gotta shine yourself up. You gotta polish yourself up. And I think that's part of what this team is still trying to do. They are still trying to get more polished, more refined, more shiny, so that when they are in the spotlight, they shine brightly and there are less of their blemishes to show up. But let's keep going. There's just a few more
And use
minutes in
some
this
true
left.
words that I have to look up in my vocabulary and the thesaurus, how to say that word, Pastor? Thesaurus, yes. I ain't got time for that today. I just wanted to come out there. I want them to lift me up, motivate me, encourage me. Not that I needed it, but
They
I
don't know
wanted them
what
to
moral
flip the script
victories
on
are,
them because
and
I
they
knew
don't know
what
what a
they had in
thesaurus
them.
is
All
either.
they had to do is
I'm
believe.
okay with it.
And regardless of the color of the uniforms on the opposing team, they just have to believe. And that's something that they're doing week in and week out. It's growing.
Hi, Coach.
How you doing?
Good. How are you? Nikki
Excellent.
Edwards, CU Sports Report. What did you think of Cormani McLean's performance today?
From the naked eye, I think he played well. I would have to watch the film to make sure, it is what it is. So it's hard. It's hard to say now. Then you go in and watch the film and you don't know. So I want to really reserve that to watching the film. But I'm proud of him for just even stepping up to the challenge to get his butt in there and make a difference. I'm proud of him. I really am.
Do you think he's been applying what you've been saying to him?
You'd be a fool not to, because you're not going to play if you don't. You're going to sit right over there, probably where you sitting at, and watch. But I'm proud of the kid. I'm not going to change. So somebody's going to have to.
Coach, hi.
We
Dennis
shall
Dodd from
see.
CBS Sports.
Yes, sir.
We all know how good Caleb Williams is. If he doesn't play that way at that level today, do they win?
I don't know. The kid always plays that way. No, I haven't seen him play badly. I think, he had some throws that I'm sure he would have wanted back, but that kid is a flat out baller, man. He is a difference maker. He makes them better. His thought process, even just directing traffic and putting them in the right play calls in the right situation. He does a wonderful job of checking off and just changing things and getting the ball out of his hands. It was a pleasure for me to play against them and their head coach. I mean, that was fun. That was fun for me. That really was. Probably didn't look like it from probably the shots they probably showed. I don't know what they showed, but that was fun. That was fun.
All right, thanks, Coach.
We good? Excuse me? Excuse me? Oh, the throw. I thought you said death row. I was like, what is that?
That throw was fascinating. We see this as fans, and we're like, wow, that's incredible, see throws like that. And you and Shedeur seem to think, feel like it's normal. Is there anything he does that makes you, impresses you or kind of wows you or shows you?
No, I'm his dad. Like, I have an expectation for him, and I've been seeing this, and he's been built and reared for this his whole life. I mean, you didn't believe. I believe, everybody from the previous locations that we played. I mean, the kid has always won. He's always been dominant. He's always been smart and intelligent and concise. He's always been a competitor. He's always lifted the level of competition, and he's always given us a chance to succeed in every level. So I could go on, but I don't want to sound like the dad, but I'm just really speaking to you as the coach. I tried my best not to speak to you as the father, but the kid can flat out play. I know a lot of people doubted him and said I just thrusted him into the starting position, what they call it, nepotism or whatever. All of you should
Nepotism
just
or
look in the
whatever.
mirror and slap whatever you see. I'm in on that. You got there late, huh?
He literally just told them to slap themselves. Oh man, what are we gonna do with Prime? Okay, so yeah, that was all of Prime sound, and I just like let it play through so that I could kind of address it all at once. But in a nutshell, what I'm gonna be looking for from Colorado is I want to see especially against unranked opponents. And I'm gonna pull up their schedule real quick. But I want to see, like, okay, was this like an actual wake up call that's going to inspire change and kind of inspire the way that they approach their games moving forward? Or is this just going to be like a one time emotional response, and then come next weekend, they're going to kind of forget about um, what exactly they learned in the second half of this game? Because based on the second half of this game alone, like, they beat USC in the second half. Like, had they had two halves like that, we'd be talking about this major upset, and there will be all sorts of headlines and other people competing with me going live right now. And yeah, and I mean, even with the loss, I feel like this deserves to be pointed out. They're still getting a lot of attention. I think when I looked at the Fox College Sports page, Lincoln Riley's press conference had like 100,000 something views. The press conference with Shedeur and Omarion, and that one other defender, it was at like 200,000 something. And then Coach Prime's press conference was at 900,000 something. And this was last night. So I'm pretty sure Coach Prime is over a million now. But he's getting like 10 times, sometimes 20 times more attention than other coaches and other teams are getting, just because of people wanting to know more about the story. So it's like, despite what their record is right now, there are a lot of people who are still very interested in this team. There's still very much a buzz about this team. Now, next week, they're going to face Arizona State, unranked. After that, they're going to face Stanford, unranked. And then the weekend after that, okay, the weekend after that is their bye week. And then after that, they face UCLA, unranked. And then they face Oregon State the first weekend in November. And assuming Oregon State stays on their current trajectory, Oregon State will be their first ranked opponent in a month. So, as far as I know, especially after seeing the performance in the second half yesterday, there are a lot of people who are expecting them to win these next three games. Um, I'm expecting them to win, and we'll talk more about them as each week comes up. But what I want to see more so is, I want to see Shedeur keep growing as a quarterback. I want to see them come out and actually have a good first quarter. And I think on the back end, like off the field, I'm just going to kind of be listening to see, like, okay, what happens in terms of how the team culture develops? Are we going to see Coach Prime make some compromises in how he evaluates who he puts on the field versus who he doesn't? Are we going to see some more guys holding each other accountable now that they're getting used to what it looks like for them to do their jobs, as Coach Prime says? You know, both he and Shedeur seem to be on the same page, in the sense that, like, yo, we can't hold each other accountable until we're doing our jobs. Well, it's like, now that we have a couple of guys who are able to step up, kind of break outside the mold, and get the job done in ways that they didn't expect, are we going to see that carry over to a certain type of mentality during practice? Are we going to see them hold other players accountable? And what is that going to do for the team? And then as that team culture grows, and then people see it through the social media videos, the YouTube videos and whatnot, what is that going to mean for recruitment? This team is fun to watch on the field, 100%. I've always been a DeionSanders fan, and so thereby a fan of, you know, what he's doing with these teams and what his kids are doing. But, like, honestly, the whole story surrounding this team is just like absolutely engaging. Like, if you can't get into it, like, what part of sports do you actually love? What's up, JVB boy? We're still here. We just finished up everything with Colorado, and we're actually about to talk really quickly about the Dallas Cowboys and get out of here, because we're going on an hour and a half. I'm hungry, and yes, we have an East Side Herald sighting. JV B boy, do you go by B boy or JV? I don't know what to call you. But on that note, I'm gonna just say, East Side Herald, I'm starting to worry about you a little bit. Because when nobody in here talking about the Texans, we haven't even talked about the NFL yet. You out here throwing out score predictions. If you like it, I love it. Like, it wasn't that distracting, but I'm just like, yo, if the Texans don't have a YouTube page or something, go make one. Eastside Herald, do you? And see who comes to your shit and starts posting score predictions or whatever. Like, it seems like you have a lot to say. You want people to hear it. So, you know, if you build it, maybe they'll come. I don't know. JV, cool. Got you. Noted. All right. So, real quick, we're going to talk about the Cowboys. Like I always say, I'm not going to go into, like, what are my top three matchups? Because I'm sure y'all have been Chuma Edoga and Bill Belichick to death. This morning, I wrote an article, though, and the article was about a couple of comments that Bill Belichick made. And there's this weekly segment he does called The Bellustrator. And it only lasts a few minutes, but a few minutes is enough for me to pull out a few quotes and write 500 words on it. And for those of you who don't know, and I feel comfortable saying this because I've been open about it on Twitter, is like I have to do 3 articles a week, and sometimes I'll be struggling. Like I don't really have anything to say. Nothing I think is interesting anyway. So Bill Belichick saying anything about the Cowboys, I'm like, okay, that's it. That's what I'm writing about. But what he did say was, and I quote, obviously, Prescott's one of the top quarterbacks in the league. Now, it feels like every week somebody from the opposing team says something along those lines. So it's kind of getting to the point where it's like, yeah, let me guess. You think Dak is one of the best quarterbacks in the league? And do with that information what you will in terms of why the Cowboys fan base doesn't always see Dak Prescott that way. But he commented, Bill Belichick commented on Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence, and you can find this video on the Patriots YouTube. So he talked about those two. He also talked about Tony Pollard and CeeDee Lamb. Thank you, JV. JV says my points are always interesting and validated. I appreciate that so much. I was telling somebody this week, I was like, I still need to work on like making like good content, but I feel like I have a gift for like insight. Like I can listen to somebody or read something and I can extract some really good points that are interesting to other people. But yeah, so what Bill Belichick said about Dak Prescott to me points to what we might see in terms of how he's going to attack the Dallas Cowboys offense today. Now, like I said, I always just throw these things out there, not because I expect Mike McCarthy to like watch my YouTube, listen to my podcast, and be like, we better listen to what Jazz has to say. This is for you guys. I want y'all to have information. I want y'all to have context because a lot of y'all found me on Twitter. And when we go back to those Twitter streets, I want y'all to be armed with actual knowledge. So one of the things that Bill Belichick said, he talked about Dak Prescott's time in the pocket. And he said, yeah, he's very patient back there. And I don't remember his exact words, but it was something to the effect that Dak Prescott is able to take his time back there. And even when he's pressured, and sometimes even when he's hit, he's still able to get a really good pass to its intended target. And it was just something along the lines of like, yo, if you don't actually sack him, he can still like make a pass on the money. So to me, I'm hearing that and I'm like, okay, that's what you're gonna attack because he wasn't talking like that about the other guys he mentioned. About CeeDee Lamb, he was like, oh, he's a good route runner, he's got good hands. But he didn't really mention like any actual threats with CeeDee Lamb. Like, oh, you would have to approach CeeDee Lamb this way. He was just like, oh, CeeDee Lamb's a good route runner, he's got good hands. Tony Pollard, he's got good balance and he can find holes. Yada yada yada. But when he talked about Dak, it was like, okay, like this is something that we need to watch out for with this guy. Now, obviously, that doesn't reveal everything about what he's going to do. But remember earlier this week, I talked about this idea that, like, okay, you might not be able to fluster Dak Prescott. You might not be able to throw him off of his game, but you can kind of mess up the offense by kind of going at the people around him. So with it being that he's got these offensive line issues, it's like, okay, how is he going to attack the offensive line? Now, we don't know who's going to be on the O-line unless we do. Martin, let me know if you've heard anything. I feel like last week, a couple hours before the game, people knew who was going to be on the O-line. And I've heard a few things. I heard that Chuma is nursing an elbow injury, which is kind of a really big deal. If you're an offensive lineman, like you don't want to have elbow issues. They're kind of important. So I've heard that, and I've heard that Austin Richards was practicing at left tackle and left guard this week. Now, because of that, I'm thinking we might see Austin at left tackle, and between him and Chuma Edoga, I'd rather see Austin. Now, I know I've had things to say about Austin Richards at left tackle, but I just feel like one thing that we can say about Austin Richards, one thing we can say about Austin Richards is that he's usually at least in the right place. Now, his mechanics leave something to be desired. There are several ways that especially like an experienced defensive lineman would be able to beat him just by watching film. It's like, okay, I know what to do to get past him. But I was listening to Girls Talk, Boys Talk, and if you don't watch that show, you should. And we're talking about how excited Awesome seems this week. And I hope that excitement is coming from working on some of the things that he needed to improve on when it comes to his mechanics. Because when I tell you, if he could improve on things like, making sure his, like getting his anchor right, getting his feet right, working on his leverage, making sure that it's not so easy. One of my lights went out. I'm like, okay, it's almost time to wrap this up. But making sure that it's not so easy to get him to lean forward, because honestly, that's the biggest issue with Awesome. It's like if you engage him in contact and then you kind of pull away, but like you do it whenever he starts leaning forward, he'll just fall forward and it's easy to run past him. So it's like you don't even have to like outstrength him. You can just like get him off balance and then go past him sometimes, right? So I'm hoping that that's something that he's improved on. I don't know if Bigot is just playing. Last I heard, he was questionable and Martin was questionable. I heard that they were questionable but improving. So I really don't know. Martin says, yeah, I would trust him on that. Martin has a way of just finding this shit out, especially on game day. So yeah, um, I'd rather see Awesome than Chuma at left tackle. Now, left guard, I'd rather see Chuma there. I made a couple of comments about Chuma in my article that wasn't meant to say he's a bad player. That was strictly meant to say I don't like him at left tackle. Now, the other thing about Bill Belichick, or really I should say the Patriots, is defense, and this was also brought up on Girls Talk, Boys Talk, this 3-4 defense. One of the points that they brought up on Girls Talk, Boys Talk was that the offensive linemen were telling them that with the 3-4 defense, what it means is that a lot of the communication for the offensive line has to happen pre-snap, and a lot of the communication for Dak comes, or not a lot of the communication, but a lot of the work happens post-snap in terms of him determining what should happen. Um, and so that's another reason why Chuma makes me a little bit nervous, because we saw some examples last week of where it just seemed like he was unsure of his assignment and what he should be doing. Now, according to according to Mike McCarthy, there we go. According to Mike McCarthy, he didn't Chuma did not practice a lot last week. So it could just be because of that. He was out of practice, wasn't sure what to expect, wasn't prepared for that moment. And Mike McCarthy took accountability for that. So I will chalk that up to whatever Mike McCarthy said it was and keep it moving, because I do the same thing for Dak, right? Um, so it'll just be interesting to see what it looks like is happening from a communication perspective during those first few drives and what adjustments are made, if any. But as far as what we're looking at on the field, there we go, second light is out. As far as what we're looking at on the field, whenever we start talking about what we're seeing and how the offense is performing, I think that's just the main thing that we should keep in mind, that the 3-4 defense is different than what we've seen from other teams. And it's impacting the communication. Like I said in a previous video, the O-line determines a lot. Understanding what's happening on the O-line gives you context for everything that happens as a play unfolds. And so I think as we say, like, who's doing good, who's not doing good, whether or not Dak Prescott is doing a good job, I think we should pay really close attention to the offensive line today and what's happening there before we start, sharing our opinions and casting judgment. But yeah, I think a lot is going to ride on what happens up front today on both sides, honestly, because we just talked about what's going to happen with that. But even on the other side, where our defense, the Cowboys defense, is facing the Patriots offense, there are a lot of people out there who are like, oh, all the Patriots got to do is run the ball. Well, guess what? They're not that damn good at running the ball. So like, will it even work out that well for them? And if it doesn't, well, they've got O-line injuries too. One of them is, dang it, I can't remember his name, but he's been at right tackle a lot for them, but he's not doing very well. I say all that to say, this is a situation that, especially considering, and the third leg just went out, but especially considering that Micah Parsons and Ron Curse and the whole Cowboys defense is looking to make a statement after how they performed last week. The fact that they don't have that great of a run game, and also they have issues on their O-line, doesn't bode too well for what they might experience in terms of how the Cowboys are going to attack them. So JV said Holy Spirit's trying to that us down. What are y'all doing? I don't know what is happening. Watching the game from church if Chuma is at LT. Y'all are so silly. Oh my God. hopefully the extra time practicing will do a lot of good for Chuma and Awesome and whoever ends up on the O line today. Last week they weren't prepared for the injuries. This week they are. But once again, this is another game where when it comes to the Cowboys offense versus the Patriots defense or the Patriots offense versus the Cowboys defense, I trust the Cowboys offense to do a better job against the Patriots defense than their offense will do against the Cowboys defense. And I'm gonna just leave it at that. I think with Dak Prescott knowing that he can expect to see some interesting things in the blitz packages and knowing that, he's gonna have to do work post snap in order to make sure he's making the right decisions because of this 3-4 defenses and what those linebackers might do. And everybody knowing that the O line is going to have to communicate a lot beforehand. I just think having that knowledge and being prepared for that is going to lead to us seeing a very different product on the field than what we saw last week. I don't think we're going to see a lot of those same mistakes pop up on either side of the ball. So that's it. I'm gonna go get some lunch so I can be prepared to watch first the Chargers. Hopefully this link works so I can watch Simi Fehoko, who I believe is playing today, and then the Cowboys. So find me on Twitter. It's BTCHESLUV Sports, or you can go to bitcheslovesports.com, look for the Twitter icon, and click on it to follow me. I'll be tweeting throughout the games today. You all can join me and join in on that conversation. Tomorrow, it is highly likely that I will not be going live. If I don't, I might pre-record something and just play it at the time that I normally go live on Monday mornings. But like I said, I got a full-time job. I got clients who like to rearrange schedules and stuff, so I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make it live. But either way, I will share my thoughts post-game. And at halftime, I'll be writing the halftime report for InsideTheStar.com. So if you want to know my thoughts about what's happening at halftime, just make sure that you're following me, and at some point I will share the link and you can read that. Hope the Holy Spirit strikes Georgie Porgy, respectfully. Oh my goodness. I'm so done with y'all. It is clearly time to go. It is time for us to all have lunch and get ready to watch this game. Thank you everybody for tuning in, both on YouTube and on Twitter. I definitely appreciate the numbers and the likes and the retweets and the shares and the comments and the shout outs today. On that note, I'm Bitch 2 and I'm out.